Professor Murli, professor at Carnegie Mellon University. You have done your PhD from Monash University and then your bachelor's from Deakin University. You are a certified professional from Australian Computer Society and have a varied interest ranging from big data to data mining to business intelligence. Professor, over a period of time, we have seen a new concept of big data coming up in the market. What exactly is it?
Well, to be honest, it's not exactly a new concept, but big data has been a buzzword, for the last decade or so, and the reason for that is, the sudden realization by corporates and enterprises that they've got this massive amount of data in their data warehouses. They would like to have some way of gaining insights into this data, right? So that they can actually derive, either a better understanding of their customer or better revenues from the knowledge that they've got in this data.
But Professor, over a period of time, we have seen very recently, means in the 2000s only, the companies have started investing heavily. Most of the Silicon Valley firms,
that's right,
they are investing heavily. What exactly is that rush all about?
I think this is something that started with companies like Amazon and Google and Facebook, which have constantly shown us the value of data, right? Simply the analysis that for example Facebook has done and that helps them market products better. Google that uses data, right? Amazon, which is using customer data for selling products better. I mean, these companies and the rise of technology platforms, which have made it easier for us to manage large quantities of data and analyze them. They've made corporates and enterprises realize that now they can get into this, right? And they can start applying these technology platforms to analyze their own data stores. Just to add to it, for example, there are estimates that from many different agencies, but IBM, for example, says that we're producing about 2.5 billion gigabytes of data on a daily basis.
That's massive.
Right? Yeah, it's a massive amount of data. And the question is, how can we derive value? Right? In fact, they've gone on to the extent of classifying data as an asset, like a valuable asset such as oil, for example.
Right.
And so data is considered as the new oil.
Right.
Because companies have realized that they can no longer ignore the data that they have either collected or that's out there to be used. Right?
But Professor, as the companies are investing so heavily, has any commercial success has been proven till date?
There are massive successes, right? I mean, if you take any domain, for example, health is one of the biggest domains, right? There are so many cases in which experiments with big data have helped governments to redirect investment in the right areas. There are so many case studies of how small changes have realized large, massive gains in revenue for agencies in healthcare. Not just by not just analyzing patient data, but even the management of in healthcare, right?
But Professor, can we really consider it as an exact science? And what exactly are the sources of data? Where exactly are they pulling the data?
It's a fantastic question, because one of the biggest challenges in big data analysis or analytics is simply getting the data in one place, right? For many corporates, their biggest challenge is they don't have all the data in one place. They have legacy systems that have been running like since the 60s, and then they've got modern systems that they've just invested in. So for them, the challenge is how to bring across all the relevant data to answer the question in one place, right?
All right.
And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. But to that, to help with that, newer technologies like, for example, Hadoop and technologies like Apache Spark and Hive, many of them are open source technologies, have actually helped enterprises reduce the cost of getting into this space.
Well, Professor, bringing the economics to the equation, we can simply find that there is a competitive edge that the companies get over by using big data and data analytics.
Yeah.
But do you find it plateauing at a particular time? And is it coming very soon? And how far can it be?
No, it's not coming anytime soon, because it's actually this is the time to get into it, I think, because what's happening is that
are we seeing a revolution in the information age?
I think the revolution has started.
Right.
And what's happening is that most of the corporates, we've seen large numbers of surveys done, and about 80 to 90% of corporates, enterprises are wanting to get into this space, or they've already started diving into this space. In fact, we see a large amount of job skills requirements in this area. Many of these enterprises have actually also said that they want to hire people with the right skill set in big data analytics, and that's also in shortage. And just to give you an estimate, there's a forecast that by 2025 the big data market itself is going to be around $150 billion.
That's a significant amount,
yeah,
Professor.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's the revolution which has just begun.
That's right, yes.
Where exactly it's going out? What are the new things which are coming up? There is another buzz in the market which is coming up to be Internet of Things.
That's right, exactly.
And wearable technology.
Wearable technologies.
What exactly are these, and how exactly are they related to big data?
Well, I mean, just imagine, Abhijit, that if you've got previously you had your laptop, or you had your mobile phone, which was producing data. You've had your internet activities that were producing data. But right now, this Internet of Things is going to have all your devices connected. And so all the data is now available for us to collect, right? So for example, we have smart watches, we have smart thermostats, we have smart homes that are all basically being controlled and producing data. And there's a massive network of sensors, to put it in a very simple manner, right? And when you have sensors, you've got data, right? Now, what's happening with all this data? You have to collect it, you've got to organize it, you've got to analyze it to make your living much easier, right? So all that data has got to be stored and analyzed. So that's causing, the next kind of revolution, because this Internet of Things is going to produce data, in a massive scale, right?
So it is like from your mobile, you can connect any of your appliances, you can connect
exactly
anything.
Right. Yeah. In fact, your home understands you. Right.
Flipping the coin out here, Professor, don't you feel that it can create other aspects, problems as well? Means the policy issue.
Of course, yes.
What I'm trying to question is,
yeah.
Don't you feel like the corporates are actually stalking the people on the net?
Well, I'll correct you on that regard, in the sense that corporates, less than the corporates, it's more, it's more service-oriented, service providers who are going to then be controlling this Internet of Things.
Right.
The corporates, on the other hand, are they want to analyze their customer data to try and basically provide a better customer experience. Or also, for other things, for example, like cross-selling, for example, right? Corporates want to look at what their customers want. It can work. It can work well for both sides, right? There are privacy issues, right? And governments around the world have now started legislating the use of data. So, data privacy laws have increased in Australia in the last year. There's been significant move towards, in Europe, for example, in controlling access to data. For example, the forget me button in Europe, which they're talking about.
Recently, Google came up with this thing.
Google came,
to be forgotten.
Right to be forgotten, exactly right. Yeah. So there is a lot of push towards that, and I think I think people will be smart enough to understand to what extent their data could be used.
All right.
And I'm sure that agencies will also go ahead with subscription and consent and proper forms of information usage.
Yes.
And I think that will drive it. But there is this big issue of privacy in this space, right?
Professor, when we talk about privacy, we are talking about individual data, or we are talking about the metadata as we have come across.
Right.
This metadata can actually predict values, but these values, how far are they true? And
right.
How exactly do they derive meaning?
Yeah, so to a big extent, right, a lot of analytics that happens out is basically on a higher level. For example, it's aggregated data. So we're not trying to identify individual behaviors here. We're trying to identify, group behaviors, right, or demographic behaviors by demographic. We're looking at how groups of people of different types behave, right? But I think that's between the group data and the individual data is where the line is. You have to draw a careful line, because it's quite easy to then move on and try to basically look at an individual's behavior, where you're treading on the red line. So the issue that you've got to be careful about here is how do you use the data? How do you? There are a lot of technologies now that allow you to anonymize data. So there's this whole field in data mining called as privacy preserving data mining. Right?
Okay.
So the whole aim of this research field is that how can we anonymize data and then mine it?
All right.
And then so the actual data miner cannot have an individual's record.
True.
But they can see what are the patterns in the data. Right?
Okay.
So that's one of the trends.
Professor, one
Which are
thing. Again, as you said, like privacy is one major issue.
Yeah.
The regulations have been
That's
taking up place in various countries, and usually they would not be on a platform basis.
Yes.
There will be different privacy regulations
Yes.
around the world. Do you feel a need of a regulator or a super regulator on a global panel level that can help unregulate and can synchronize the market?
I think it would be really important to have data privacy and data policies which have kind of a global reach.
Okay.
And I think it really helps for governments to actually synchronize their privacy efforts. And I think it's happening to a big extent. I mean, Australia, for example, is there's a lot of work happening between Australia and US and countries like Singapore and New Zealand. There's a lot of work happening where privacy laws are discussed, and there's a big push towards coming up with an overall kind of
Yes.
reaching kind of legislation for this. But I think it will happen. In fact, in my honest opinion, people haven't yet completely understood the impact of this, right? And I think technology is moving at such a rapid pace that I think we have to kind of pause and look at the impact.
Professor, one more question on the terms of spreading out the message.
Yeah.
Now, internet has been a revolution. It has changed the way the information behaves, the way information works.
Yeah.
But it also infringes at times the intellectual property.
Sure. Yeah.
What exactly can big data help in reducing that intellectual property, or like the piracy issues we talk in general?
Right. See, to be honest, big data and privacy issues are kind of they're really parallel issues in a sense, right? They are. So piracy is a completely different issue in a sense that this is because of individuals and malicious hackers or organizations that are willing to basically steal your copyright, right?
Yes.
And steal intellectual property and all of that. More than big data, I think to stop privacy, I think what you need is a dedicated effort by policing organizations around the world who can get together and work towards stopping or targeting these people who are stealing IP.
Because very recently there have been numerous examples that have come across where hacking has taken place and all the intellectual property has been. The biggest one, Sony.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The country's espionage team is working completely.
Exactly right.
So,
yeah.
Such issues, they are affecting the commerce of the world.
So, of course. So the issue is we have as you've probably been hearing is that the war has actually moved from the battlefield to cyberspace now. So it's and as we go into the future, it's unlikely that we are going to see probably a physical war out there, but it's probably going to be more on a technological war in terms of how can you hurt your enemy's assets online or through online sources, right? I mean, there's the famous instance of the Stuxnet, the worm that actually basically killed nuclear enrichment facilities in Iran and all of that. So when there's cyber war in that scale, you're obviously not going to get everyone in your team.
Yes,
you're going to have that issue. So I think the best you can do is to kind of up your defenses, right?
Right.
Is to basically push yourself. For example, CMU basically pioneered cybersecurity. They've got the computer emergency response teams that they've highlighted and they've done some cutting edge research in this area and in terms of how to prevent your IP from being stolen, or how to prevent attacks in the first place, and how to keep your system secure, right? And so I think that requires strengthening your defenses. I think that's what is most important here.
One more, Professor. Talking about various privacy issues and protecting your IP, one of the things that have come up in the world is Tor project.
That's right. Yes.
And example of it and the variant of it is incognito mode in the Google Chrome.
Yes.
So what exactly is this happening?
Well, I mean, it's you see, Tor and anonymization technologies, right? They basically are aimed towards keeping your privacy as you traverse the web or the internet, right? So they're more oriented towards people who want to keep their privacy, who don't want to be targeted by search engines to profile, who actually who want to analyze your profile and basically give you ads, right? So try to send you ads. So it's more or less for users who want to anonymize their moment for various reasons, right? For both valid and the right and the wrong reasons, right? So Tor and those anonymization techniques by themselves will not help you stop the threat of stop the stealing of IP, right? Because that depends on individuals who protect it, right? So, for example, piracy and all of that. In fact, Tor and all of them help have the wrong effect. Sometimes they can help people who are trying to steal IP as well, because they can hide their tracks using Tor, right?
True.
And Chrome and all of that. So this requires, as I said, careful defense, and also the cloud is something big that you've heard about, people storing data on the cloud. So a lot of the hacking that happens when you store your data on the cloud happens because you have exposed your data by keeping it on the cloud.
Yes.
So I think it's really important for people to understand that there are encryption and decryption and technologies that will help you kind of hide your data or basically keep it safer. And so what you can do as an individual, I think, is to go out there, see what are the technologies that can help you, strengthen or safeguard your assets, right? And you should do that. And I think that's probably the best way of preventing your IP from going into the wrong hands.
Professor, you talked about big data, you talked about business intelligence and various aspects on privacy and piracy. Now, bringing it on the cloud platform where it is making the economic sense, because companies are saving on big data servers at their place, they are just using it that way.
Yeah.
This trade-off between the cost and the benefit, does it really making sense in the upcoming generation? Is it that all the data would be stored on the cloud itself? We will have no hard disk like the way we had. The way, if you remember, floppy disk, they completely removed themselves from the market.
Yeah.
So will the hard drive on our laptops will be completely removed in the upcoming future?
Yeah. Well, no, I completely don't think so, because see, I don't think people are completely comfortable about relying on a cloud-based provider for all their needs or for storing their entire data on a cloud, right? The cloud provides a beautiful way of backing your data up and providing access to it anywhere, anytime, right? That's the cloud's biggest advantage, and the cost, right? Obviously, the cloud is making things much cheaper for us, and with companies like Google and Amazon Web Services and Microsoft providing cheap cloud-based infrastructure and backup of data, that is not going to stop, right? People are going to keep using the cloud, but at the same time, businesses are obviously not going to completely rely on the cloud, because remember, the cloud is based on your having a good internet capacity, right? A good network connection, for example. If you completely rely on the cloud, it means that if you don't have your network, you don't have a business.
Yes.
So
the uplink time and down.
exactly. If you don't have a link at all, then there's no question of
Absolutely.
then you don't have a business, right? So the question is, I don't think bigger companies are ever going to completely rely on the cloud to run their business. They're always going to rely on backups, and I think backing up locally is not expensive. The cost of hard disks have gone down, and as you know, smaller USB devices now come up in 256 gigabytes in small USB sticks these days. So the cost of storage has dropped to a great extent. I think the cloud will always be a way of extracting more than just a data backup service. It's going to be used for infrastructure on the and systems on the cloud, compute power, right?
Yes.
It's expensive for enterprises to buy expensive servers. So I think the cloud provides a fantastic way of adding extra compute power to your systems.
Professor, to sum up, what exactly is the future of internet, the future of the way we interact information in upcoming 10 years from now? What exactly is your future vision?
Yeah, I think it's just, the Internet of Things, I think is probably one of the big futures that we're talking about here. And I think it's just the massive communication between not just human to human communication, but device to device communication, and devices completely understanding you. I mean, we're talking about driverless cars now. We're talking about all those kinds of upcoming features or upcoming gadgets. And so what's going to happen is this communication is hoping it's hope that it's going to make our lives more easier and make our day-to-day routine faster and more efficient, right? But it has its pros and cons, as we spoke about, in the sense that it is highly invasive. The Internet of Things is a highly invasive thing, and not everyone is going to be comfortable with devices running your life, right? I'm sure many of us prefer the other way around as well. So, but I think what I think the biggest biggest sort of magic, or what we call it, is the rise in communication, the speed of communication, right? If you think about it, the ability to communicate with anyone, anytime now has just changed the way we live. There's no basically lag between me wanting to communicate something with you because of social networking and the low cost of telephone and other media technologies. And I think this is going to rise even more. I think that is going to be the bigger revolution that we see. So.
Thank you, Professor
Yeah.
Murli. It has been
Very
a
welcome.
real great pleasure talking to you.
Excellent.
Thanks for sharing
Yeah,
your views.
you're most welcome.